our government again went into open roundup mode, detaining and imprisoning thousands of United States citizens.
If you voted for a certain political candidate, you should be considered a potential threat.
That you could be a possible threat. You could be a terrorist threat against government structure.
Why am I interested in getting this information out? It's simply because it affects us all. Against the wall!
Some among them were potentially dangerous. Most were loyal. But no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move. This picture tells how the mass migration was accomplished.
Hi, you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles, and right now we have a very interesting guest via telephone. The reason that he can't do a video interview with me at this time is because the information that he's going to be sharing with us is extremely sensitive in nature, and to protect himself, we're going to be doing this as a telephone interview. Anyhow, our guest right now, Soldier X, are you with us?
Yes.
All right. Now, before we jump into some of this information, because we had to stop for a minute before earlier, but you were touching on a lot of interesting things. We need everybody out there to hear about this. But can you please just give everybody a little bit of your background to let them know your military involvement and why you are obviously a person of interest, because you would because of your military involvement, you've been placed in predicaments to come across very interesting information.
Okay. When I started in 2000 in the Army, I was infantry airborne, then went to Ranger, and then to several other training bases. Also, my last training and my last involvement with the Army was with you asked me why am I interested in getting this information out? It's simply because it affects us all. Whether you're a soldier, whether you're a politician, whatever you are, this is going to affect us all, because it goes from the highest to the lowest, and it's definitely a concern for humanity.
Evacuation. More than 100,000 men, women, and children, all of Japanese ancestry, removed from their homes in the Pacific Coast states to wartime communities established in out-of-the-way places. Their evacuation did not imply individual disloyalty, but was ordered to reduce a military hazard at a time when danger of invasion was great. Two-thirds of the evacuees are American citizens by right of birth. The rest are their Japanese-born parents and grandparents. They are not under suspicion. They are not prisoners. They are not internees. They are merely dislocated people, the unwounded casualties of war.
Man, I love that. So now, we were talking a little bit earlier about the whole situation with the buildup of UN troops here in the United States of America, right?
Right.
Can you jump into that and just kind of touch on that information once again?
Okay. We'll start with Texas. Texas has a buildup of Russian troops for a chemical unit, the same chemical unit that was deployed to Afghanistan in the 80s to chemically take care of the Afghan people, not just the Mujahideen, but the people as well. They gassed everything and everyone. In Fort Bragg, there was a buildup of German troops, and they're basically just sitting and waiting. And then in Florida and Everglades, there's about 20,000 Chinese troops.
And this is all taking place right now. And you said that all of these guys are on standby right now.
They're all on standby. None of them are doing training with us. It's all standby for them when the super highway that they have going from Canada down to Mexico is implemented, and when all the highways are interlooped with each other to make people go back to where the origin of where they came from. Most of the troops, the European troops, have come down from Canada down to the United States. The ones that are already here will then disperse. So any hostile Americans that come across, they'll have a chance to get it before full war breaks out.
In 1942, the United States government forcibly relocated over 112,000 Japanese nationals and Japanese Americans to remote housing facilities called war relocation camps for the purpose of detainment, re-education, and forced labor. Of those interned, 62% were United States citizens. President Franklin Roosevelt authorized the internment with Executive Order 9066, allowing military commanders to designate military areas as exclusion zones. This power was then used to declare the entire Pacific coast as an exclusion zone, forbidding people of Japanese descent to live within these areas, unless, of course, they were held in war relocation camps. In 1944, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of these exclusion zones, and in 1945, after 2.5 long years of imprisonment, the interns were finally released. The United States government issued no formal apologies, but did present each former inmate with exactly $25 in cash and a train ticket home, if they were lucky enough to still have one. 43 years later, in 1988, President Ronald Reagan would sign a bill that formally apologized for the internment of Japanese Americans on behalf of the United States government, and finally granted reparations to survivors. The language of the bill stated that government actions of the 1940s internments were based upon 3 criteria: racial prejudice, wartime hysteria, and a failure of political leadership.
So what is most important in this bill has less to do with property than with honor. For here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
In 2001, following the attacks of September the 11th, our government again went into open roundup mode, detaining and imprisoning thousands of United States citizens, again seemingly based upon the same 3 criteria used to intern Japanese Americans: race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. Let there be no argument. The United States government has put its own citizens in detention centers. The justifications for doing so range from personal prejudices based upon political and religious grounds to wartime frenzies and fears of future terrorist attacks. In a time of great crisis, the impossible becomes possible. Is it possible that internment camps are being built in the United States today? Is it possible that history will repeat itself?
Wow. Now, what type of first-hand experience have you personally had with this whole situation?
Several places I've been, I have noticed these troops myself several times when I have people, even though we all had a top security clearance, no matter who I asked, they all told me, don't worry about it. And then I later find out they're here to implement the UN's insurgency against the uprising of the American people. Wow. When things get bad. And obviously the things that are getting bad are being made that way because they're already here waiting. You know what I'm saying?
Wait a second. Sometimes there's some things that you can say and you just might say them too fast. So you said that they are here to implement the UN's suppression of the American people uprising against the government?
Basically, what they're here to do is if I say anybody, put it this way: if the government has you on a list, these foreign troops are going to take you to one of 800 concentration camps, which I've tracked down myself, and I've seen personally 2 of them here, one in one by one base and one by another base. I'm going to
Right.
weird, but also I've talked to a worker who was on one of them, and I personally asked him, what did he think about what was going on? He knows exactly what I know about it.
Right. Wow.
But he doesn't know about the foreign troops, though. The foreign troops are here to take, because Americans are going to take Americans to concentration camps.
On April 1st, 1979, by Presidential Executive Order 12127, the Federal Emergency Management Agency was created for the purpose of coordinating the response to disasters that have occurred in the United States and that overwhelm the resources of local and state authorities. Upon its creation, FEMA absorbed the Federal Insurance Administration, the National Fire Prevention and Control Administration, the National Weather Service Community Preparedness Program, as well as several other federal-level preparedness programs. FEMA was also given the responsibility for overseeing the United States Civil Defense, a function which had previously been performed by the DoD's Defense Civil Preparedness Agency. In 2003, FEMA became part of the Department of Homeland Security's Emergency Preparedness and Response Directorate. FEMA follows 3 simple directives. 1. National emergency recovery. 2. Continuity of government. And 3. Combating perceived threats to the existing social and political order.
Now you said if you're on a list. What list? What list is this?
Okay, it's a federally made list of people like yourself who gets information out there. Preachers, teachers, concerned citizens, anybody who might be a threat, or anybody who might know too much, or anybody who blogs too much, myself, anybody, even soldiers who are returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, they also will put in, because they have military experience, and will fight back.
It's hundreds of thousands, plastic coffins.
So each one of those is a separate coffin stacked on top. There's probably, what, 20 to 25 per stack.
They call people who believe in the sanctity of life, who believe in owning firearms, who believe in serving their country in the military and coming back, who are very concerned about the policies that this nation is embarking on, spending too much money, taxing too much. It's all listed right here. These are the domestic right-wing extremists.